Hi everyone, thank you for joining us here today. I'm Mickey Feldman-Simon. I am the founder and CEO of I'm Back at Work, and I'm excited to be here with Megan Marini, who will be presenting today's webinar, Negotiate Your Worth. And before we continue into the webinar, I want to make sure that you can use your webinar panel. So your panel may look like the expanded version on the left, or the closed up version on the right. To open and close it, you click on the orange arrow and it will close or open the webinar panel. You can also drag it and move it out of the way by clicking just on the top of just above the orange arrow, and you drag it out of the way so it does not obstruct your screen. In the last 5 minutes of the webinar, we will have a Q&A session. And to type in your questions, you click on the gray questions bar, and then you type in your questions in the blue rectangle right underneath, and we will address all of your questions. Now, just before I turn my video camera off, I invite you to join us for other webinars as well at I'm Back at Work. Follow our Facebook page so that you get updated information and tips about upcoming webinars and returning to work. And now to Megan Marini, and I'm going to turn my video camera off so that you can concentrate on the presentation.
Thank you so much, Mickey. I'm honored to be providing this information to everyone and to be part of your rich network of resources. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my video off, and we'll just be focusing on the actual content. So I want to welcome you all to participate throughout the talk by taking notes of anything that stands out, and then you can ask questions, as Mickey had mentioned, throughout the talk, and then we'll answer them at the end. So please go ahead and do that. So just a little bit about me. I'm one of the co-founders of the Boston Business Woman, and I also ran Marketing Superheroes, a marketing company, for about 8 or 9 years. And I now work with clients helping consult on everything from negotiations, personal branding, and some mindfulness and leadership work. So know your worth. So this talk today is going to be geared toward the folks on the call that are looking to make perhaps a lateral move in a company you're already at, or you're returning to a job after taking a hiatus for a couple of years, or maybe it's been a couple of decades and you haven't worked. What we need to realize is that to make those types of shifts, it's really about our mindset and being properly prepared, being confident, and we'll look a little bit into each of these 5 topics. What is negotiation? What are the expectations and rules therein? Confidence and how you build yours, how to prepare, and then how you're perceived during your negotiations. So number 1, what is negotiation? So oftentimes what we do is we sort of think of negotiation as something that you need some really intense skill set to be successful at, and in all actuality, we're negotiating all the time. One way that we're negotiating is with ourselves even. We're negotiating how much we can spend on Christmas this year, or when we can afford the new pair of shoes. And basically, we're negotiating with our budget, with the calendar, and with our desires. And ultimately, we come to an agreement of sorts where you sort of meet in the middle. And that is essentially what negotiations are, no matter the scale. And anytime that you perhaps feel lost in a negotiation, or you feel as though things are getting really, you're getting lost in the minutia, or the person you're negotiating with is getting maybe, you know, a little lost or even too attached to an outcome, there's some tension building. It's always nice to clarify the situation and just remind the person that, hey, here's some main objectives that you're looking at accomplishing today. You need a certain amount of work done or completed, and I'm looking for a role where I can meet these few goals that I have for myself. And the agreeable, the agreeable outcome would be a win-win for both of us. What does that look like? So you're just sort of refreshing the conversation, changing the energetics, and lightening things up a little bit. So next slide. So a few tips to negotiation, and this is just high level, and then we'll get into a little more of the nitty gritty. But mirroring, so Chris Voss has a great book, which is Never Split the Difference. I highly recommend it. He says mirroring is a neural behavior or a display in which we copy each other to comfort each other. And it's a sign that people are bonding. So if you walk into a room and the person is very jovial and excited to see you, welcome, and they use your name, please sit down, we're so happy to have you today. Perhaps your response would be, well, thank you, I am so pleased to be here, I'm excited to speak with you this morning, and I'm looking forward to having a great interview, okay? Then you walk into the room and the person is, good morning, you can take a seat right here. And they're very curt or fast and maybe not as jovial. So your response could be, good morning, thank you for having me. So you just sort of tone it back and basically meet the tone that they have shared. Let them lead, right? So another skill that Chris Voss mentions is maintaining a low voice when negotiating, and I think that this is nice. So perhaps you don't do this the entire interview, but when you start talking about money, make sure that you're really grounded and you feel calm. And one way that you can do that is by controlling your voice. So he calls it the DJ voice. So yes, I like that number, but what else is possible? You know, might be something that you would practice. So that's going to help you. Keeping in that tone of voice is going to help keep you from getting too emotional. So well thought out ideas about what you want and what you will provide will always help bring the conversation back to that win-win, that final agreement. So you're providing goods and services and they're providing a wage. It's very simple. And then always stay away from explaining personal needs. If there's bills that need to be paid, or you know, your son's college tuition or your own college tuition, these things are irrelevant, literally irrelevant. You're making a professional exchange for your services, and that's what you want to focus on providing value that they need. So the expectations and rules, some of these are unwritten and some of these are very clear and obvious, but I thought it would be nice to kind of go over them. So essential business etiquette, these we all know, right? So you really want to be on time, make sure you're neat and tidy, friendly, professional demeanor, you're confident, and you feel prepared. Some more advanced ways to exceed expectations is getting into a smooth conversational flow with whoever you're there with. So it's difficult if you're on the phone. You've probably all experienced this when two people talk over each other. It's so easy to do if you're on a group call. If that happens, just correct and continue. No need to apologize or feel like you're offbeat. But in person, it's a little easier. And if you really want to get in sync with what's happening in the room, and that will help you find that flow. Using someone's name, if you need to write down everyone's name when you arrive as they introduce themselves, that's a very smart technique, so that you can use the names and you don't have to worry if you've forgotten them. So respecting everyone's time and picking up on subtle cues if it's time to go, really sensing that. So the rules are, and some of you probably won't like this, there are no rules. And you know, once you have the expectations set, you've got your resume in hand or another copy of your resume, and you've done your research. Basically, your job is to really pick up on these subtle cues. What is happening in the situation? What's happening in the company? What information can you garner about this job? And what's everyone's perspective on the situation? And you want to be able to sense a lot of it and then ask questions that will help you to figure out how much negotiation leverage that you have before you get to the part where you start talking about specific numbers. So it's really about asking some great questions, and we'll get into that a few slides down. So confidence is everything. And I really can't urge you enough to really focus on the confidence. Now, I would say the old paradigm was much more about ensuring that you have the correct certifications and licensing, and you know, you have the right career path, or the resume is perfect, and all of these things, right? And you still need all that stuff, but it's not the most important thing. Your mindset is everything. So imagine that you're looking for a lateral move, and you run into your hiring manager for this new job on the elevator on your way down. And you've been saying to yourself, okay, I have my resume prepared, but I don't know if they're gonna accept me in this new role because my background doesn't completely line up. And am I ready for this? I'm not sure I'm ready. And if you've been telling yourself that, and you run into this hiring manager, it's likely that you'll say something that will express that mindset, because you weren't prepared with your confidence. So even though you have everything that they're looking for, you've given the subtle information to them that you are not prepared, you are not ready. So if you work from mindset and your belief first, you're going to be better prepared and more agile in the moment to answer questions than if you do not see yourself in the role. If you cannot see yourself, they will not see you in the role. So you need to become relentless with this self-talk and really build some self-awareness. That's where confidence comes from. So when I was younger in school, I wouldn't go to the restroom all day until I got home, because I was too afraid to raise my hand. So I wouldn't talk in class, you know, all day. Unless someone asked me a question, I would. And now I speak at conferences, obviously, if you know the Boston Businesswomen's Conference. I've spoken in front of 10,000 people, and I'm not nervous anymore. And I liken this to the work I've done. And it's not just preparing for one talk or one negotiation. It's an ongoing commitment to speaking positively about myself. And that really helps you up-level your belief system. So this is a great one. Sometimes we just get so excited about something, and we really are creating a nervous energy. And what we want to do is channel that and say, I am excited and present, and I'm going to bring this energy through as passion and intelligence, and I'm going to show up fully for the meeting. And that can help to kind of ground that energy. So a few confidence tips that you can use. One is to practice in the mirror. And you'll actually be practicing some of the things that you might say, looking at your performance. So if you typically slouch, or, you know, kind of knowing your physical expressions, you want to practice how you walk into a room. Are your shoulders back? Are you using your hands when you talk? Are you using positive affirmations around, I'm smiling and I feel good and I look good and I'm holding good eye contact? And I know it sounds a little nerdy, but this stuff actually works. One thing you can do is to create a one-page document that lists some of your personal accolades, things that you've accomplished, stories that you like to share. And that's going to help you be prepared and feel confident. And if there's some downtime or some chit chat, it's nice to mention one of these stories that you've chosen or curated as part of your personal brand. Rather than, if you don't think of this, sometimes we tell a story and later go, oh, I wish I told this other story. So spend some time standing in what Amy Cuddy in her fabulous TED Talk, in the power pose, as this woman on the left here. Hands up, legs open. You can do this in the restroom before you walk in for your negotiation. And this is going to send a signal to your brain that you are feeling empowered, confident, and strong. So you are worthy. You really are worthy of asking for what the top people in your industry pay. If you know, you dream about making more money, you deserve it. And a lot of people go into interviews asking for what they want. There's no reason you shouldn't. So how do we prepare? So a few different things that you want to focus on are knowing the numbers, and specifically what number that you want. You want to know the person that you're interviewing with and what their role at the company is, what their role is in the hiring process, and what they might be looking for. You want to know the company. Obviously, you want to know if you fit there as well as if you know, it's like a do they like you and do you like them. It's not just do they like you. And you want to know what you want more on the softer side of things. Is this company culture what you want? Is this the right company for you? So a study at Columbia found that interviewees that stated a very specific number fared better at getting it. So if you're thinking about asking for 75,000, maybe you add $500 to that. If you've, you know, taken this other accreditation, or maybe you minus $500 if you haven't taken this accreditation. So you're being very specific and understanding why you're getting to that number. So Glassdoor is a fabulous place to look at reviews if the company's large enough that are given by previous employees. It's typically upon departure. Sometimes it's folks that are still within the company that are also telling everything from how much they get paid to how their manager treats them and stuff. It's really fantastic. I'm sure you know of it. You want to know what the job title is, what the pay is. Does it fit, you know, as far as what you're going to be getting paid, you know, what are the qualifications that the job is looking for, and also what are you going to be doing in the role? I think that's one that sometimes we miss. Also checking out, yeah, like what are other people in your city making? If you're in the country versus in Boston, it's going to be very different. So here's some research sites that you can use. I won't spend too much time on this slide, but know that it's here to come back to as a great place to check out numbers that other people are getting and trends and how fast a market is growing, or is it expanding or shrinking. So know who you're meeting with. LinkedIn is the place for that. So is there a shared interest with this person? Perhaps they posted something last Friday that you have a similar shared interest. Is a great way to build rapport. Or maybe there's a college connection that you guys have. That's always a nice way to start a conversation. Know their role in the company. So again, back to this making decisions. Are they the decision maker? Or are you simply making an alliance with this person? And sometimes these things can be a little more difficult to sense, but most of the time you can pick up on who is the decision maker. If you cannot, then you can simply ask, who is the decision maker on the, say, final decision maker on whether or not this is going to be, you know, this role, or how much I'm making or whatnot. And you can also just ask what the hiring process is. You can build out that question and ask more, right? You can say, where are you guys in the hiring process? How many interviewees are you know, in process right now? Are there going to be 6 different stages to this? What specifically are you looking for within this interview process? Right? You could keep going with all of those questions. So then you want to look at the company as a whole. Is it the right fit? Because the last thing you want to do is invest years building something within a company and go, you know, I wish I asked better questions at the onset. So really knowing if this is the right company for you. You want to know what you want. So the way I look at this, as you kind of break things out between negotiables and non-negotiables. So once you do this, you really get clear on the things that you can play with during the negotiation. And then you also ensure that you get what you want and what you need. If you've not defined these, then you literally could walk out going, well, that was good, but shucks, I actually should be getting $10,000 more. Why didn't I think this through, right? So really spending that time to know what your number is. And we hear a lot of times that, you know, the person that throws the number out first is at a disadvantage. I would actually challenge that. I've been in negotiations where you need to tell the number, and they're all waiting for you, and you've got 6 people in an interview looking at you, and you need to know the number. So feel courageous, and you know, you've done your research, you have the number, and you're worth it. So feel courageous in asking for what you need, and then you can back up why you need it. Again, staying professional in why you need it as a professional exchange of goods. So, you know, maybe you have to get your kid at 4 o'clock on Thursdays. And that's something that you're not willing to negotiate. You need it. Perhaps it's outside of the box thinking for them, but it's something that you'd like to have. And I think it's nice to have those types of needs given right up front versus you're in the job 3 weeks and then you have to negotiate this stuff. As well as knowing the things that you are willing to negotiate. So having those laid out, because if it comes down to it and they're like, listen, I really can't change the wage for this. And you're like, well, I'm willing to give up this, this, and this, whatever that may be. Perhaps it's something you could pull something out of the benefit package or the company car you don't actually need. And that can give you some leverage and some playing power so that you can get the number that you needed, right? And it's just like give and take. It's back to like there's sort of a circle in the middle, and that's the win-win. What are the playing pieces that we can use? So again, you are worth it, and having that strong belief system when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, down to those dollars and pennies, you are worth asking for what you need. And you may not always get it, and that's okay. But knowing that you've asked for it and really going to bat for yourself, you're going to get a lot further. And at the end of, you know, your entire work career, if you've asked for it, you will have made a lot more money. I have one client who, she just didn't see herself in this role that she was building for a project, a large national company. And we started working together on her mindset around what is this specific role, what is the title that she would love to have, what is the tasks she'll be doing from day to day, what is the pay she'll be getting. And this is all going to happen in a very fluid and organic way. And we literally painted a picture of what was going to happen, so a vision. And a year later, this role was offered to her, the exact title that we had been working on manifesting. So just all mindset work. She was able to advocate for herself at all of these junctures and say, hey, I know that I'm not getting everything that I need right now, but I know that I will be. And I know that we're moving toward that. And her sort of building out this plan of worth for herself really made it possible. So one key, and this, isn't like 101 with negotiation, but I think that it's a skill that we can all start to work on. It's a little more nuanced. When we're speaking, being able to understand how you're being perceived. So you've got an inbound message and an outbound message. And typically we're sort of focused on our outbound message. Oh, am I saying the right thing? Or here's what I'm going to say next. And we're talking. And we want to be able to sense how we're being perceived at the same time. You can look at body language. You can look at if their faces have changed or just the subtle energy in the room has shifted. You really want to make sure that your body language is communicating what it is that you're saying. So that's why we want to be practicing our physical movements as we're practicing what we're going to say in the mirror. So seeing if this stuff syncs up. Also thinking about how you're sitting, how you're standing. These types of things are going to help you understand how you're perceived. Let me actually jump back real quick if I can. So I just want to tell this other story about how we're perceived. So I had a client who had a very strong, powerful communication style. It was very, I liked it a lot. And when we looked at, she was sort of diminishing she wasn't getting what she wanted in this negotiation with her landlord for her private practice. This may or may not be relevant specifically to what you'll be negotiating, but there's some key in here. So once I asked her, because it was obvious her communication style, once I asked her about the person she's negotiating with, he was a traditional man who it seemed like he wasn't really being receptive to her style. So I asked her to see if she could give him the power in the conversation. And whatever that meant in the moment. So we came up with some language around, well, what is it you'd like to see? And I'd really like to make sure that this project happens, but how can it happen? So she'd ask him the question, how do you see it happening? What can I do to help you make it happen? So she would say things like this, versus what she had originally done was tell him exactly what needed to happen, and he would say no. He would just, nope, we're not doing that, because he was being told what to do. So being able to sense the subtle power dynamics in a room. So sometimes you're going to be interviewing with someone who really loves to hear themselves talk. They're like, yes, and this and that. And you're just going to listen the entire interview. And because you did what they needed you to do, you're going to fare better. Other times you're going to need to step in. And perhaps what I would suggest is like a testing of the waters. So you've got someone really powerful or a couple powerful people in the room that are bum, 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 bum kind of thing. And then you've got equally intelligent people that perhaps their communication style is they wait, and they're a slower thinker. They're, you know, again, equally as intelligent, just their speed is different, right? So they may wait. Maybe what you're going to do is ask one of those folks their opinion. Or you're going to step in and say something slightly provocative, or, you know, change the conversation a little bit. And you're going to do this to sense what's happening in the room and what the subtle power dynamics are, and to show them that you're a player in the game. Because they may be waiting for you to do that. So really sensing what needs to happen. And this is part of sort of how are you perceived. Okay, let me get to the next slide here. So extra credit. So trends and negotiations. So as we know, things have changed in the past 10 years, and one of which is we used to be interviewed once with one person, and now more oftentimes than not, you're interviewed multiple times. And of late, we're even seeing, you know, you've got 6 people interviewing you. So be ready for that. You can ask as well, within asking, what is the interview process? How many people will be interviewing me? How long is the interview process? Also, where are you in the process, right? You guys, if they're hiring on Monday, you have a little more leverage than if, you know, they'll wait 6 months to find the right person. Oh, all right then. Well, what does the right person have? Might be your follow-up question. Or, you know, what are the indicators of this right person? What is it you're looking for? So other trends are, you might be asked to explain problems that they're dealing with right now in the company. So be ready to talk specifically about the role you'll be in and how you might handle certain things. Previously, we used to get asked on how you handled things in the past, but this is a subtle shift in trends, as well as being thrown curveballs. They may ask you something really outlandish or something that you're like, this is irrelevant to the role, but they're looking to see how you respond to the question. Do you get hot-headed? Do you make a joke and make light of the situation? They're just looking for that response, and it is an indicator of emotional intelligence. Understanding that you cannot be prepared, right? So just knowing that a curveball may happen helps you to respond to the curveball when it arrives. Another thing that I do is I actually will throw a curveball in an interview, just to see how they respond to something, and that they can see that you've done some thoughtful analysis of the company, and you can maybe sense something that's coming up that nobody's told you outright. And it lets them know that you're interviewing them as well. So yeah, I think we're ready for questions. And actually, before questions, sorry. So I help people with negotiations, also with branding and with some leadership training. Please visit me on any of my sites. My most active is Instagram. I invite you all to follow me. I will follow you all back today. And I look forward to hearing from some questions if we have time. Do we have time, Nikki?
We have a couple of quick questions. First of all, thank you, Megan, for all the wonderful information. I hope everybody has gained a lot from the presentation. So the first question is, Rachel is asking if I'm pushed to give a number for wage expectations in an initial phone interview. Would you give a number or a range?
You said it's in an initial conversation?
Yes, an initial phone interview.
I usually ask for more time. I say I'm going to need more time to give you that information. And I would want to do a little bit more research and find out specifically about the role. I just feel like it's really too quick to ask for that.
So
Or you could give a range if you feel confident that you have one. If you feel confident at that point you have one, give a range. If you do not, say I do not feel confident yet that I understand the role enough. And then you can come up with a series of questions, or you can also ask them what they're thinking.
right, and I completely agree. And I think that often a very persistent recruiter will not let you get off the phone
Yep.
without giving that number.
Yep.
So one way of handling it is really giving a range, so that if the role is requiring a bit more and would be on the higher side, you keep yourself covered. But make sure that the number you really want is within that range.
And possibly in the center of the range, right? So you go a bit higher, because you need to be ready for them to sort of whittle that number down.
Exactly, I agree. One more question. If you're given everything that you asked for in the initial negotiation, would you still negotiate?
It's another great question. So I have a client that I'm working with, and yesterday she said to me, the wisest bamboo bends the deepest. And I think that, you know, if you're hell-bent on like practicing negotiation skills and you're like, I really want to kick butt, I'll go for more, then do that. But also know that sometimes you may miss the mark and they may say no. So what I would do in my, ripe old age these days is I would say yes at that point, and I would accept the offer.
I think that if everything really makes sense and like it makes sense for the specific role and you're getting what you want, be happy. Just think of, this is what I wanted, I'm happy with that, just go with it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Megan again for joining us today. Please join us for other presentations at I'm Back at Work, and we hope to see you back soon.
Thanks so much.